Yo, what's up guys? How doing today, man? I'll be reviewing Forrest Gump 30 years, 9 months later. It came out July 6, 1994, and I'm here today on April 12th, 2025, doing a little movie review of it. 30 years, 9 months, and 6 days ago, Forrest Gump came out, and let's just get into it. So Forrest Gump, I'm not gonna lie, I've heard some really good things about it. Never really got into it. I didn't know the plot, I didn't know about anything. I did remember seeing some clips like the from Jenny, the are you stupid or run Forrest run, and him running. Like, I've seen that gif, but I've never really heard the plot of the movie. So I was going into this just with nothing really to base it off of. I was just like going in blind, whatever. Cool. Yeah, overall I give Forrest Gump an out of 10. For the longest I was like, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 at the very most, and the last like 10 or 15 minutes hit, and it's in a really sad movie. I'm not gonna lie, it literally brought me to tears. The end with Jenny and Forrest Jr. Oh, that was sad, man. That was very sad. But let's get into Forrest. Forrest is such an interesting guy. He lives so many lives in one, and he has this big heart, and so many people just unfortunately end up leaving his life, which just absolutely sucks for him. But let's start off from the top, where we found out that Forrest is named Forrest because apparently he's related to basically the leader of the KKK. Yo, that's diabolical. And his mom made him as a kid wear braces on his shoes so he can have a straight posture, and he couldn't really run with the braces on. And then kids would like bully him because he wasn't smart and he was dumb and he was stupid. And then one day they literally ran to go ahead and catch him and do God knows what with him. His braces fall off, and then he finds out, wow, I'm really quick. I'm damn near a track star. And he goes on to do so many things just running. That's why the iconic line, run Forrest run, initially from Jenny. By the way, shout out to Jenny. He was going on the bus for the first time, and no kid on the bus would let him sit next to him. And then Jenny was like, hey, you can sit here. And then they start chopping it up. And throughout the movie, we see a lot more of Jenny and also Forrest. So just a really sad movie overall. Just the classic line that I saw, again, the Forrest running multiple times, the nostalgia even 30 years later, the fact that those clips I still see in GIFs to this day is just a testimony of how it's just a really good movie overall. And then the feather, I ended up reading up on it. The feather at the opening scene of the movie is also right at the tail end of it as well, literally right at the end. I guess that like symbolizes like Forrest's life and how this like unexpected things, and then another part of the movie was expect the unexpected. So many things happened in Forrest's life that he couldn't have scripted, and he was cooking. And then to find out that all the stories that Forrest is telling, he's literally on the bench telling all those stories. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure Lois, who maybe I pronounce it, I'm not too sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. She was the one that initially was the first person to listen to Forrest stories on the bench, and then she became like kind of like not a visitor, but that's what they would call him. So she would just work with Forrest's mom in their house because they always had a lot of people over. I'm pretty sure that was the same Lois. If I'm not correct, please correct me as well. But so many people there, so many insane things happened. Again, Forrest is literally on the bench waiting throughout this whole entire movie to go on a bus to see Jenny. And this whole time he's telling his whole life stories to anybody and everybody that could listen to him. Not really anybody like interrupting him. They're letting him just go. He's telling them this, that, and the third. They're just sitting waiting for their bus. And it's just absolutely insane. Prior to that as well, another thing I want to mention as well, I didn't write it down, but another thing I remember off the top of my head currently, I'm just looking through the cast list. So Forrest had an IQ of 75, and his mother had to sleep with his principal so he could not go to special education school. Huh? And then you could hear him grunting, and then Forrest was mocking his principal's grunts. Like, such an insane moment in the movie right there. Like I mentioned, Forrest is brain dead. Forrest does not have functioning brain cells, but he knows how to run. And he's talking about finessed a college football scholarship at the University of Alabama. He finessed a Crimson Tide, Roll Tide scholarship because he know how to run the ball. Bro, this guy was literally running to the tunnel. They said, Forrest, I'm guessing he was the running back. They're like, Forrest, get this ball and just run. Bro doesn't know how to line up a formation. Bro's literally running past the end zone into the tunnel. And at the end, he ended up having a great All-American season, meeting the principal, and he graduated from college. Not in 4 years, but in 5. Hey, let Forrest cook. And then he goes up and enlists into the army after college. Out of nowhere, somebody just came out with a flyer, and he ended up just going there, went on there, and initially he was like, damn, I think might have made a mistake. Nobody really messed with him. And then Bubba out of nowhere. There was 2 obsessions in this movie. Bubba with shrimps, his family, his mom, his grandmother, his great-grandmother, so on and so forth. They were all in the shrimp industry. And then Bubba was going to do that right after his time in the army. And he was talking to Forrest about, I'm going to be the shrimp captain. You can be my mate. And then they built a really good relationship. And Forrest and Bubba are the best of friends. And they're in the army together. And then they go out to battle and get some random airstrikes, random bullets. And Bubba, unfortunately, does end up passing away. Forrest, like I said, he has a big heart. He literally tried to save everybody that got wounded. He brought him to like a better like space where, you know, they could be with the others as well. They were also wounded. And I'm pretty sure, don't quote me if I'm incorrect, but were Lieutenant Dan and Forrest only guys that made it out of there? Because Lieutenant Dan, he was mad at a point. He was like, damn, why did you save me? I wanted you to leave me there so I can be with my boys in honor. But he ended up making it out of that. I mean, he ended up having no legs until the end, but just absolutely insane. And they end up in the same hospital in Vietnam. So much insane things happened as well, like 2 hours and like 20, really like 2 hours and like 12, 13, the last were just credits, stuff like that. But yeah, I feel bad for Bubba. That was tough. That kind of hurt. Actually, that did hurt. And then Jenny, like I mentioned, from the beginning of the movie to the end, we see Jenny a lot in this movie. She was in a different college than Forrest, because she went to all girls college, and then randomly one day Forrest goes to see her. I think he would go every so often, and she's making out, going insane in the car with, I guess, maybe her side piece, maybe that was her boyfriend. I don't know what that was, but they were just going at it. And at Forrest, out of nowhere, in the rain, just waiting for her, he sees like kind of like her hair, and he goes in. He's like, just 2-piece combo, 3-piece combo, 4-piece combo, just absolutely starts just going into. Jenny's like, yo, what is this? What are you doing? What are you doing, Forrest? And he's like. And then Jenny's like, he doesn't know any better. And then they just go in. She sneaks him into her all-girls college. And then she like guides his hand onto her chest. And Forrest just doesn't know what to do. And then this whole time, it reminds me of like 21 or 22 Jump Street, where Jonah Hill was with Ice Cube's daughter. And then the whole time, the roommate is also listening in on the other side of the room. It's just absolutely insane. Yeah, so much things happen between Forrest and Jenny. At the end, we know what happened. I'll get into that as well. I'm kind of discombobulated right now, but I just finished watching the movie and I just have so much to say, so I might just be going from this to that, but I want to try to keep going in like some sort of order here. Yeah, just an absolute insane movie. Absolutely insane. Yeah, Jenny was in the Playboy magazine, and then she was in she was like kind of like half topless singing at like some bar or club or something like that. She was a folk singer, and then I'm guessing they always knew where each other were because they would write letters for each other. So Forrest out of nowhere, in the middle of being in the army, just goes somewhere and Jenny's there, and she doesn't end up leaving with him because she has something going on, and you know, she's on some things, and then she's going through a lot, and she's like fighting like suicidal thoughts and jumping off buildings and things. Like, Jenny has so much going on in her life that it's just like she's just in such an interesting character. That was a really good moment though with Forrest and Jenny when the speech went on, and then some random guy just tried to pull the plugs on, and then Jenny was in the ocean or the water, and Forrest gets off the stage and goes in the water, and they have a nice moment. Everybody's cheering and things like that. Lieutenant Dan grew on me, but Lieutenant Dan, you gotta be stopped. You would think he would be more appreciative of his life being saved by Forrest. In reality, he wasn't. He was like, why'd you save me? I have no legs, I'm crippled. And they end up building a good relationship, especially at the end right there. But I don't know what that was. And then Forrest out of nowhere, so he goes from being a extremely fast guy to being in the army, helping people in the army, to now being a ping pong demon. He picks up ping pong out of nowhere. Oh, it's going to mention he did end up getting shot like in his buttocks, which was just insane. And then he showed the president, and he's like, damn son. Reminds me of your Rage Tomorrow's Teachings video where the coach is like, when he showed him his piece, and his coach is like, damn son, you gotta be put in a federal penitentiary, you absolute freak. Yeah, Forrest just picked up ping pong. He was just an absolute demon, and I can't be the only one that sees, if you watch Succession, Tom Wambsgans and Tom Hanks, especially in Forrest Gump. They look, dude, the resemblance is uncanny. It is absolutely uncanny. And then somebody from the army goes to Forrest and is like, your time here is no longer needed, you're no longer enlisted in the army. And then Forrest just runs home and goes to see his mom, and he goes home, and his mom is like a $25K check for the ping pong paddle. All he has to say is, oh, there's a ping pong paddle that I use, this is a good paddle. $25K, spends some of that on a dinner, spends some of that on some soup, some Dr. Pepper, like 3 bottles I believe, and then he spent the other like 24 or what is it, like 20, at least 20 plus K on a shrimp boat. And initially doesn't find any shrimp, and then all of a sudden Lieutenant Dan shows up, a whole hurricane comes up, all the other shrimp boats are done, he's the only shrimp boat there with Lieutenant Dan as his mate, and they have all the shrimp in the world. They have a shrimp monopoly, they become millionaires. They have a company called Bubba Shrimp, not Bubba Shrimp, Bubba Gump for the shrimp company. He's a millionaire. He said he's a gazillionaire, and he gave half of that because the half of the sharing was supposed to be to Bubba when they both said that they were gonna have a shrimp company together, and he gives half to them. His mom passes out, and then she ends up not having to work again. She has people working for her and things like that, which is absolutely insane. You absolutely love to see it. There was a nice, good redemption stories up with Lieutenant Dan, who ends up going to New York. He has a couple of prostitutes, and he's trying to but one of them is going to Forrest, and then Forrest is like, but she tastes like cigarettes, but I'm good. And they end up kicking them out, and they have a nice little moment together, and one of them called Forrest stupid. And shout out to W. Mans, Lieutenant Dan, and again, nice little redemption story for him. Ends up taking offense, like, what you mean? This guy saved my life. And he actually realizes it now. They go to church, Lieutenant Dan in the back drinking, absolute menace to society. And at the end, we see Lieutenant Dan. He has a fiance, Susan. So shout out to Lieutenant Dan. Great redemption story for him, but he still is a absolute menace to society. And then Forrest, while he's in the ocean on the boat with Lieutenant Dan, ends up getting a message that his mom is unfortunately sick. She had cancer. He ran home. A couple days later, I believe like on a Tuesday, she unfortunately had passed away. And he has a nice moment with Jenny, ask her to marry him. She says, oh, you don't want to marry me? And I'm like, he asked you to marry him and you were asking him and you're telling him you don't want to marry me? Like, huh? What does that even mean? And they have a moment, and then I want to say she ends up coming back. Looks like she has like a wedding dress on. They have her moment. They kiss. She's on top of him. Boom, 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 boom. And then she just takes a taxi somewhere and ends up just leaving. And she ends up becoming like a waitress or something behind the line. And then, what's it called? Forrest. He's down in the dumps. He sees that the necklace that he left her from the army and some other things as well are there, and she left. And the taxi driver is like, where are you running to? And she's like, I'm not running. And she ends up just becoming like a waitress or something in like Georgia or something, I want to say. And Forrest ends up just running just running just for no particular reason. People in the news like, why are you running? You're running for rights or this or that. He's like, no, I'm just running. And he ends up running. He ends up just getting a whole like group of people that run alongside him. People on the lines like shirt business and slogan business are asking him, yo, can you help me with this? And then somehow somebody, they ended up just talking to him for a couple like seconds, not even like a minute. And they end up building successful businesses just based off all of that. So much insane things happened. And then you have the end where Jenny sees Forrest on the TV while she's working as like a waitress. And then she ends up having these clippings in her book from all the storylines and things like that. As I guess that point she ended up keeping up with it. I don't know. Yeah, for 3 years he was running from Alabama, he was in Mississippi, back and forth, only stopping to sleep. He has a whole crowd, the news crew, this, that, and the third. And this whole time he's literally telling the story while he's on the bench in the suit from the beginning, talking to people. Started from Lois to one of the people as well. And then the other guy's like, oh, this whole time talking to a millionaire that was with Bubba Gump. And he's like, and then Forrest was like, yo, you want to see Lieutenant Dan? And then he showed the book or whatever it was, but just absolutely insane. And Jenny ends up giving Forrest a letter, and that's why he said the best the whole entire movie. And then the lady is like, you don't have to take the bus there. All you have to do is just run. It's like 5 to 6 blocks. Runs to like door number 4, goes there. They have a nice moment, and the babysitter comes up, and Jenny's has a kid, and we find out that Forrest has a kid named Forrest Jr., and he ends up taking care of them. And then Jenny is like, oh, Forrest, I'm sick. While there's like this, Forrest Jr. is on like the he's at the playground thing, maybe like a slide or something like that. And then Jenny unfortunately tells Forrest that she's sick, and then on a Tuesday or something like that, while Forrest taking care of her in Alabama, she unfortunately does end up passing away, and he ends up burying her like next to a tree in their backyard. And they have this nice little but this nice little they have a nice little cemetery where they have like some rocks and things like that right around the tree. Just absolutely tough. So that's just brutal. Unfortunately, everybody that really is in Forrest's life, except for his kid, is no longer there. At the end of the day, all he really had was Forrest Jr. and Lieutenant Dan. Child Lieutenant Dan was Susan, his fiance. The end really gave me very, 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 very bad tears. I'll be honest. Also on Jenny as well. I was about to get on her, and then she unfortunately got sick and unfortunately passed away. But the amount of times she played with Forrest, I mean, I guess she knew herself better than that Forrest knew her, because he was obsessed with her, but she wouldn't give her full self to him. Always ended up running away. Remember the Black Panther thing and the thing with her ex where they would just like beat her up, and Forrest came out of nowhere and just go insane. And yeah, she ended up never really going to Forrest until literally the tail end of the movie, unfortunately. And then it was too late because she was sick and he had a virus that doctors didn't know what it was. And again, like I said, she ended up unfortunately passing away. Then we see the end where Forrest ends up bulldozing the house of her dad, which she ends up going to and just get traumatic memories because her dad was obviously not a good person at all. We don't know what happened to really Forrest's dad. Apparently in the movie in the beginning, his mom was talking about, oh, he's on vacation, and he's like, oh, what's vacation? He's like, where you go somewhere you don't come back forever. I'm guessing he was no longer with us as well. So there was so much things happen. I also don't know what happened to Jenny's mother. Really didn't hear about her dad, who sounded like he was really abusive, and she was trying to run away and become a bird and fly away from him, far far away. But yeah, the end really broke me with Jenny unfortunately passing away right at the end, where they finally got together. They got married and this, that, and then Forrest Jr. going on the bus, and Dorothy, the bus driver, is the same Dorothy from when Forrest was a kid, which is just like, man, what an absolutely insane movie. The book that Forrest Sr.'s mother read to Forrest, and now Forrest Jr. is bringing that book to show and tell, getting on a bus, the memories from the beginning of the movie. That was such an elite movie, man. Such an elite movie. And as I look through the couple of cast members as well, as I usually like to do for these movies, a couple of people I want to shout out for sure. Let me just look up Forrest Gump cast members. Obviously, we know that Tom Hanks was Forrest Gump, Robin Wright was Jenny, Lieutenant Dan was Gary Sinise, Sally Field was Mrs. Gump, Benjamin was Mykelti Williamson, Forrest Gump Jr. was Haley Joel Osment. Another Forrest Gump was Michael Connor Humphreys, the older, I want to say, or the younger. Yeah, the younger Jenny was Hera R. Hall. School bus driver was Siobhan Fallon Hogan. Principal, that was Wheezing Menace, Sam Anderson. Lois, who was the first woman that was listening to Forrest's story, was Margot Moore. But yeah, all in all, I think that was it. Like I said, I get Forrest Gump 9 out of 10. Brought me to tears. Just an incredibly sad movie. Shout out to Tom Hanks. I've heard a lot about him. I think this might be, funny enough, like my first movie I've seen of him. So comment down below any video, any movie recommendations. Definitely gonna keep getting at least one of these out a week, every Friday, and usually upload them by at least Saturday. But yeah, very good movie overall. Shout out to Forrest Gump. But other than that, y'all, that is the video. So go down below, drop a like, comment down below, sub up, make sure to follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and TikTok. It's your boy John. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, and I'm out, man. Peace.